Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Kay Murray, Gab Marcotti and Stevie Nicol here. Oh, cosy again?
I've got to tell you something.
Go on then.
Again, I did this the other day, but the same thing happened. You know when something pops in your head during the show and you just, it's not the right time? You know when we started talking about Lukaku, there was a song came in my head.
Why?
I'm nobody's child. You know that song?
Nobody loves me, I'm nobody's child.
Nobody wants me. It was good right through my head when Gab was talking.
Oh. I spent a lot of time wondering about, you know.
What goes on in Stevie's head?
No, the 19-year-old who ran a lot, who joined Liverpool. Because, you know, there's been more than one 19-year-old who's joined Liverpool
fair enough.
who did pretty well. Liverpool were pretty good in the 70s and 80s.
All right, fair enough.
So it's interesting that you were talking about that specific one.
Did they play in numerous positions in big cups?
Are you saying you were the Romeo Lavia of the early 80s?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
I think we need Stevie Nicol.
Yeah, I didn't have quite a Hollywood name as Romeo Lavia, but everyone else fell into place.
That's it now, you're going to be Romeo Nicol. All right. Stevie, what was it like dealing with agents while you were managing the Revs?
Awful.
Were there ever any pleasant conversations, or did most end in disagreement between you and the agent?
No. I would probably say 50-50. But the 50 that were worse absolutely overshadowed the decent, normal human being type of person who you can have a rational conversation with. Some other guys were just horrendous. I mean, just awful.
I'm curious about this. You don't have to name names, but as I understand, especially back then in MLS, weren't there basically two guys or one group and one guy who kind of had most of the players?
Yeah.
Was that the 50-50?
No, there was a lot, yeah, but then you've still got a lot of players from outside of the US trying to come here. And so you were dealing with lots of different agents. As I said, some you could have a normal conversation. I mean, I'm talking about a situation where an agent would call me and say, I've got this player, what do you think? And I go, well, I'll tell you what, I'm interested, but this is all I have. Because you got a budget. And I'd say, look, if he's interested in coming for that, then I think we can do something. And then you would sit and talk as if I had not said a word and not actually told them how much I can give them. And say, well, I'll tell you what, this is what he's worth. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have that. Well, you know what, I'll tell you what, he's not going to come for that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. And then the guy would call back 3 days later and have the same conversation. And I'd be like, look, I don't want to be rude, but I've told you what I've got, and if you don't want it, that's fine, so don't call me. Well, that's ridiculous. How do you expect somebody of his quality to come here for that money? I'm like, look, I know he's great, and I know he's been good, but I don't have it. And then it's just so annoying.
You can just tell him that you had a pretty hard salary cap in MLS back then, right? I just say like, that's it.
I would tell them that within 5 minutes.
Like, I can't go to Mr. Kraft and ask for more money.
No.
There's a salary cap.
I would tell them that after 5. There was another one, by the way, and I won't mention his name, who would never have a conversation with you other than on the phone. Because when they were on the phone, they were all brave and would tell you all this kind of stuff. But whenever you saw them face to face, it was always, hello, how are you doing? And nice to see you and all that. But honestly. Aye.
They were a bit scared of you, Stevie, to your face.
Yeah, and there was one guy in particular, just, you know, people talk about the worst agents having no interest in the players and it's just all about the money. And this guy was all about the money, but it was like not a lot of money, and he still didn't care. I mean, just embarrassing how they couldn't care less about players. They were just, they were just a dollar sign. Whatever they could get.
Yeah. It's good to see this. You don't really still get riled up about it all these years later.
No, it doesn't bother me anymore.
For Gab, who was better in their prime? Roberto Baggio, Gianluca Vialli, or Francesco Totti?
Oh, God. I think if you... Okay, so I think Roberto Baggio is probably the most technically gifted of the three. And if you look at World Cups and whatnot, you know, he's the one who would stand out. Gianluca Vialli, who obviously had a very close relationship with. I think I can be the first to admit he was not as gifted as the other two, but he gave you other qualities. He was a tremendous leader. He really inspired people. I would say...
He loves Totti. He loves Totti. He's killing him saying Baggio here. Killing him.
What I would say about Totti is, I don't know, I love the fact that he stayed at the same club his entire career. Maybe too long, some people might say. And then he came out with
names.
What? Well, like
Name
gems
names.
like the fact that, you know, one title in Roma is worth 10 at Real Madrid. And, you know, and maybe could have pushed himself more. This is why the whole Harry Kane winning trophies argument resonates with me. I think it is special. I think it does matter more when you don't go and jump on somebody else's bandwagon. But yeah, if you're talking about individual technical ability, you would go with Roberto Baggio. But you're best athlete of the three, I think it would be Vialli by a mile, probably.
Nice. Starting next season, both France and Germany will only have 17 teams in their top league, playing only 34 games in a season. What do the guys think of this change? And would Stevie have liked less teams in England when he played?
It's 18.
Well, it's 18, of course,
Yeah.
if it's 34.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you would like less, from a totally selfish point of view, less teams means less games. So that's, from a player's point of view, that's a good place to start. Because then you're just fresher.
because
Well, for
Germany already
longer.
do.
What's the idea? Why? I don't remember the idea of why they went down to 18 teams gap. Can you enlighten me?
So I think in general, I mean, remember the Premier League at one point had 22 teams, right? And they went down to 20. So obviously, if you have fewer teams, then there's fewer slices of the pie, right? So you make less revenue because you play fewer games, but those marginal games are against lesser teams, right? So there is a financial element to it. I think there's definitely a player safeguarding element to it. I think what happens, as we see in Italy, in La Liga, in the Premier League, when you've got 20 teams, you're going to have midweek league football, which is fine, but it's not the most fan-friendly, right? Because you can't travel to games and so on. You can't spread them out over the weekend. So I think broadcasters probably make less money off those games as well. So personally, I'd love it if every league went down to 18, if not 16 teams.
Yeah, I hear it. A lot of Serie A fans agree, I think, don't they? Saying that they wouldn't mind seeing an 18 team.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, again, it's a usual turkeys don't vote for Christmas, as they say in England.
Right.
Thing, right? That's especially up north, right? That's, you know, and I think that's why it's not going to happen for a while.
Tell you what else isn't going to happen.
What else is going to happen? I can't hear a thing.
Stevie's earpiece is just falling out.
Just fell.
So he's missing a tooth, and now he's missing a earpiece.
Oh, I can hear you too. That's all I need to hear, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's just so comical
Just
the way it sounds.
rolled over there. Oops.
Would you do wiggle your ear? How does it just like fall out like
I
that?
have no idea.
No, I can't say that to him, Pete. That wouldn't be nice. Okay. He actually did then say that you've always struggled with your earpiece.
Aye. You all right?
It's just, it was so funny the way it no.
Just fell and rolled. There you go. Things happen.
Oh, lovely. Okay, guys, do you think the summer American tour for the European teams is truly beneficial for their pre-season prep? Or do you think it's best for them to stay back home, train and play locally?
I bet you there's not a coach on this tour that would not rather be doing something else at home. Or not at home, but closer to home. Because there's no question, this is about finance. This is not about preparation for your team. It's about finance. So yeah, I would think all the coaches would rather be doing what they really would prefer to do. But they all understand that at the end of the day, for teams to be able to go and buy the big stars and, You need money. And they're all trying to be global these days, everybody, including Wrexham. So there's got to be a sacrifice somewhere, and the sacrifice is the coaches don't get the pre-season that they actually would prefer.
I'd love, without turning into a boring finance of football thing, but I'd love to know the actual dollar amount, because buried within each club, there is an actual dollar amount of money. When you factor in the expenses, then you get more sponsorship, more in gate receipts, you've got guaranteed money and so on. But in the end, what is your bottom line, right? And you get the marketing people pop up and be like, oh, but enterprise value, brand value, marketing, and it's all this guff nonsense that these people make a living on. But in the end, every club comes up with a number. And does that number then translate into an extra draw rather than a win, or a defeat rather than a win later in the season? Do they actually have nerds within the club who sit there and actually put a value on it? I think it's an interesting conversation, and it's interesting to see Liverpool, for example, they're playing Greuther Fürth. I'm assuming it's not over here, right? So looking at that stadium. So, it would be interesting if it's somebody with a clout to go and say, you know what, we're going to stay home this summer and do things and see how it works out.
See how it is. Do a tour of their home country. I'm sure a lot would turn out.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, seeing as though we're talking about finance, Gab, next question. For Gab, do you think that FIFA would create a set financial fair play rule for all leagues worldwide, or will UEFA drop them before more bigger name players take the money and run?
Yeah, so UEFA don't have the authority to do that. FIFA don't have the authority to do that. UEFA even can only set rules for their own competitions, like the Champions League. Like they can't. They can't tell the Premier League or the Bundesliga clubs what to do. So I think we're far away from this argument, and I think from FIFA's perspective, it's in their interest if other parts of the world, go and spend money and attract players. Gianni Infantino, whether you like him or not, he's been very clear about this. He says right now we have a situation where great players are produced all over the world, and then they all go play in the same continent. They all go play in Europe, often on teams that are owned by rich people from all over the world. How about we try to spread it out? Wouldn't it be a good thing if different parts of the world could grow their own leagues, so that maybe they could retain some talent, maybe could attract some talent? Maybe all these rich people who invest in European football, what if they invested locally? What if they invested in South America, in Asia, in Africa, whatever it is? That's, from FIFA's perspective, that's what you want to get to, because you are about the global game.
Okay. Kay and Stevie, I'm going to be in Yorkshire and Scotland for a wedding next year in February. I've never been before and I need recommendations. 2-week trip. Where should I go? What should I not miss?
In February, wow.
I never thought of that.
It'll be dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
When's the Edinburgh tattoo on?
I don't know, but
Tell you what, if the Edinburgh tattoo's on, you need to go there. Go to Edinburgh.
Up to Edinburgh. Yeah, you can't miss Edinburgh, can you? I wonder whereabouts you're going to be, Jogo Taka. Because even Yorkshire, there is North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire.
There's not, there's...
Yeah, East Yorkshire, South Yorkshire.
There's way more places. If I was you, I would spend more time in Scotland. Because you can go because you can go to the tattoo, go to Edinburgh. Even if the tattoo's not on, there's all the castles, there's everything else, and then you can just take a leisurely stroll further north all the way to Skye, and all the way up there you'll have more than enough scenery, castles, you name it, things to do.
You'll have 6 hours of daylight and it'll be raining most of the time, but then it won't be that different.
Guess what? The people will all be lovely.
They will be lovely. And to be fair to Yorkshire, York is a lovely town.
Is a wonderful city, yeah. Once upon a time may have been the capital of England.
Not many people associate York with Yorkshire. When you think of Yorkshire, you think of bodies and all that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't think...
You don't think of York.
We're North Yorkshire now, Stevie. So, you could head up to a little town called Middlesbrough.
No.
Yes, you might want to do it.
Would you want to go to Middlesbrough for?
You should go to the North Yorkshire Moors. It will be cold, but it will be beautiful. Yeah. Leeds, if you're in the area, great city, wonderful shopping, great nightlife, great people. He won't say anything nice
Yeah.
about England, will he?
Stay in Scotland.
If you were English, you would be a Yorkshireman, though, I think.
Don't
I don't think that's a
wash
bad
your
thing.
mouth out with soap.
No,
You're
but
English. Behave yourself.
There's a whole other side of Yorkshire you haven't gone to, right? Sheffield, the
Sheffield,
Steel
yeah,
City. You
south.
can visit the Knife Museum. In Hull, there's budding
Humber Bridge.
The Humber Bridge in
East
Hull.
Yorkshire.
Yes.
Hold on a minute, I lived there. The Knife Museum.
Yeah, they make knives and stuff like that from the steel.
Didn't know that.
In
I lived
Hull,
there for 4 years.
you could budding. There's a
Didn't
whole
know.
petrochemical industry in Hull.
Oh,
Which
fantastic.
some people.
That's just what he wants to go and see.
Oh,
Bradford has some-
near Hull either.
Bradford has some lovely
Oh, Bradford.
Asian community, some lovely Asian food.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I'm assuming you're probably going to be taking trains, which is a very nice scenic route from the North Yorkshire.
Trains are
up
expensive
to
these days, though.
Scotland. They are, but
Yeah,
it's
you
a
bet.
nice way to do it.
Aye.
Huddersfield has an airport.
Listen to what's going on, like the tourist
Harrogate.
guide.
Harrogate is posh. That's like the posh, like Yorkshire bit,
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
After
That's where a lot of the footballers and managers live. Yeah, Gareth Southgate. I definitely used to anyway. Let us know, Jogo Taka, where specifically, and we'll
Yeah.
help you a little bit
Aye.
more. I hope that's a few ideas, though,
Yeah.
for you. Gab, what city is the most romantic about football that you've been to?
Okay, so not Hull. Most romantic about football. So I would probably say, just because it is just so entrenched everywhere, and you don't just have one team, you don't just have two teams, you have loads of teams, and you've got Muros. I'm going to suggest Buenos Aires, just because you've got so many different types of stadiums and so on. That is a football trip. Beyond that, I'd be biased. I'd have to say Milan. Glasgow, I think, is also really special because of, obviously, the rivalry, and Partick Thistle as well. Yeah, those would stand out. Barcelona is kind of hard to avoid as well. But there's a lot. You'd almost think that it's a big part of the cultural fabric.
They're all places where, if you don't know everything about football, it's strange.
Yeah.
Every one of those places Gab talked about, I'll obviously throw Liverpool in. It's kind of the main talking point for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Football.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Even my husband's 90-plus nonna, she doesn't watch much, but she'll say, "Qu'est-ce qu'il faut Milan?" Like, she'll know just how awful have Milan been. She'll just know. That's the first line she'll say. And I remember Ruud van Nistelrooy saying it even about Madrid, that one thing that stood out was even walking around the streets, people, like he said, there would be like little grannies, everybody just want to talk to you about football. The people you would least expect, I think he was just talking Spain in general as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up about the romance.
I remember I was injured once at Liverpool, and I was sat up in the stand. So I got up there just before the start, and I sat down, and there was an old lady sat next to me, right old-fashioned. Had the old-fashioned scarves that they used to knit themselves. No, nothing. Nothing she had was out the shop. She'd either knitted it or somebody had made it. She had a flask. Back in the days when you could have a flask as well, you bring a flask into the stadium. Just a lovely wee old woman just sitting there. She's probably, if you stood up, she's probably the same height stood up as she was sitting down. I mean, just sitting there, just lovely and quiet and all the rest of it. And then the referee blew the whistle, and she just jumped up and went, "Get into these," and swearing and everything. I was like, where did that come from? Just this wee old granny. As soon as the whistle went, she went absolutely bonkers. Oh my goodness.
What a legend.
Oh, seriously.
That's my ambition, to be that little old granny.
She went crazy, swearing and everything.
I think, though, the Buenos Aires thing, I think that's like the early stages of a relationship. Crazy, mad, passionate romance, right? That is another level.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. What is the most famous dish in your hometown?
Dish.
Dish. Don't say yourself.
I don't think there is one, Troon. I mean, everybody eats mince and tatties.
Mince and tatties.
Everybody eats mince and tatties. but I wouldn't say it's particularly famous to Troon. I don't think there's anything, no.
I'll just get mine out of the way because we've got an Italian here. Parmo, you should all probably know. We've talked about it a number of times.
Yeah.
Yes, but let's go to the Italian.
So I'm being from Milan. I think our probably most famous dish is the cotoletta alla milanese, the breaded veal cutlet.
Which we butchered to make a Parmo.
Which, yes, other people, I mean, it's okay. The Austrians co-opted it to make a Wiener Schnitzel, that's fine, you know, but we actually invented it and we do it right. The risotto alla milanese, the yellow rice with the saffron, we're very, very proud of that. We have another dish, which you might enjoy if you're into tripe and offal.
Tripe.
That is a traditional...
tripe is offal. Oh. AWFUL. My dad used to eat it. My mum used to eat it.
And your polenta?
Polenta is not actually from Milan. That's more from like the mountains and
But they all try and like use it as a derogatory term towards the Milanese, right?
People from the south. They use it, yeah, it's a generic term for the north, yeah.
That's what we'd use it for. If something's garbage, it's like, that's a lot of tripe.
That's a load of tripe, yeah.
Yeah. My dad's the only person I know that eats that tripe.
This is from a different area. It's again, not to everybody's taste.
The producer wants to know how many calories are in a Parmo, and it is way north of 1,000 in one sitting, just to let you know. Yes. Gab, can Napoli recreate their magic from last season, or will the weight of expectation prove too much for them this time around?
It's not just the weight of expectation. It's the change in manager. It's the departure of Kim, which I think is going to weigh heavily. But, you know, Osimhen's re-upped. Kvaratskhelia, we think, is going to re-up. Zielinski, it looks like he's re-upped. I mean, Spalletti is an oddball genius. And now Rudy's going to have to try to somehow recreate that. I think they can do it because I think Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen have a really, really high ceiling. But obviously a lot of things have to fall into place. But I think a lot of people are, frankly, writing Napoli off a little too early. Just say, oh, it's too hard to repeat. And like, you know, and like, oh, look at Napoli. You know, they've only won 3 titles. There's a reason. You know, people pull out stuff. They don't have the culture of winning and all this. I think it's all nonsense. They have great players. They've shown what they can do. I don't see why they can't be among the favorites for the Scudetto.
Yeah, all right. That will do it. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. And we'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. And maybe give you a tour of the north, the UK.
No thanks.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.